My name is Gregor Zorn. I come from Slovenia, and I've been studying cannabis and researching its potential therapeutic effects for several years. Now I mainly focus on medical cannabis education. So today I'll be talking about CBD, cannabidiol. CBD was isolated in 1940 and its structure was identified in 1963. It is a cannabinoid, a phytocannabinoid, meaning a plant cannabinoid, and it is one of the major components of hemp, where it is produced in its acidic form as cannabidiolic acid, or CBDA. It's non-intoxicating, meaning that it doesn't get you high, as THC does, and it does have some beneficial effects and therapeutic potential. Now, cannabinoids were originally classified as molecules, compounds that acted on the cannabinoid receptors. Now, what are these cannabinoid receptors? Cannabinoid receptors are part of the so-called endocannabinoid system. This is a very important system that we all have, all vertebrates have. It's an endogenous system, and being a system, it is composed of three components. The endocannabinoids, these messenger molecules, that is why I said phytocannabinoids before, because plant cannabinoids and endocannabinoids are different. Endocannabinoids are produced by our bodies all the time. Everybody is producing them right now. And these are the messenger molecules that deliver a message from one cell to another. Now, to deliver this message, they have to act on something. They have to bind on something. And these are the so-called receptors. Being a cannabinoid system, these are the cannabinoid receptors. So CB1, cannabinoid receptor 1, and CB2. And then we have the third element, enzymes and other transporter molecules. Now, what does the endocannabinoid system do? It's a very important system, and its main function is maintaining balance in our body. So homeostasis, or balance, is an important factor, and it affects nearly all the physiological systems in our body. As we can see here from the picture, these receptors are present in different organs in our body, in the brain, in the lungs, digestive system, also in the bones and in the muscles, and they actually act via different mechanisms, again, maintaining this balance, this homeostasis of all the other systems, like the nervous system and the immune system and so on. So CBD actually is a strange cannabinoid because its effects on the cannabinoid receptors are very poor. Often you will hear that it has poor affinity to these receptors, but it does interact with a whole variety of other receptors, other molecular targets in our body. Over 60 of them, other types of receptors, other enzymes it also acts on, as well as ion channels and different types of transporters. We can see from the graph that it has quite a lot of molecular targets, around 66 of them, and this is one of the reasons why CBD is so therapeutically important and works in such a wide variety of diseases and medical conditions. Now, which are these conditions and diseases? We can see here from the picture that CBD has quite a lot of effects. We can see its effects against pain, analgesic effects, its antiemetic effects, its anti-epileptic effects. A lot of them are quite well known. And if we look closer at some of these effects, let's say its anti-inflammatory effect. So inflammation, especially chronic inflammation, is very important, and is not only a symptom of diseases, but a cause of a lot of diseases. A lot of new studies are showing this, that actually chronic inflammation can cause a lot of the typical diseases that are found in our world. Now, CBD works via different mechanisms in the central nervous system, as we can see here, but also in the periphery by acting again on different types of receptors. In the peripheral system, it actually acts on the immune system, the cells of the immune system. And the end goal is the reduction of the inflammation. Now, sometimes you hear about CBD and its effects on cancer cells. So is it effective against cancer cells? Well, it does have effects against certain types of cancer cells. And again, its effects are via these different types of receptors. This is the membrane of the cell, this is the outside, this is the inside. I'm sorry. And we can see here that by acting on these receptors, it causes some actual processes. In this sense, in some cancer cells, it actually causes apoptosis, which is programmed cell death, which means it causes the cell to suicide itself. This is a natural program that normal cells all have it, but cancer cells sadly do not have this program, and they replicate, they proliferate all the time. That's why cancer is so detrimental as a disease. It has also other effects. It can alleviate or mitigate the cell migration, so the metastasis of certain cancer cells. Now, anxiety is something that is very much prevalent in CBD users, and they're having very good effects with CBD and its anxiolytic effects. If you're talking to patients using CBD for their anxiety, they're having really, really good effects in a sense, and this is also demonstrated by this study, which was published actually this year, where they used different doses of CBD on patients who had anxiety, and we saw that nearly 80% of these patients had decreased anxiety scores, and they did also remain decreased through the whole duration of the study, which was 3 months. So again, good results with anxiety. Now, having so many effects, we can see that in certain types of diseases, one of the effects that is very important is its immunomodulatory effect, which means it modulates the immune system. And we can see here in, let's say, a type of autoimmune diseases. There are a lot of autoimmune diseases. These are diseases where the immune system actually acts and is aggressive towards our normal cells, our tissues and organs. And CBD can block this mechanism. First of all, by inhibiting the immune response, by blocking these immune cells, but also in this case, it's autoimmune myocarditis. This is an autoimmune disease of the heart muscles. We can also see that CBD, with its antioxidant effects and anti-apoptotic, so it prevents these muscle cells from dying, but also it prevents them from transforming into other tissues, such as fibrotic tissues. So again, we see varied effects of CBD on these types of diseases. Now, I mentioned that CBD the structure was actually found in '63, but in those days, the major cannabinoid was THC, and THC was, because of its psychotropic effects, it make you high. That was the major cannabinoid that was studied. And a lot of studies right at the beginning found out that we could not explain all the mechanisms and all the activity of THC only with THC, especially when they used cannabis extract which had THC. And they found out that the effects of these cannabis extracts were, in this case, 2 to 4 times greater than only THC. And in another study, we can see similar results. The effects of the extracts were actually 300% greater than THC by itself. And they started researching, and they found out that there was some kind of synergism of other components found in the cannabis plant, such as other cannabinoids, also terpenes, flavonoids, and other molecules. And they had this synergistic effect where 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2, but it equals maybe 6 or even 10. And we can see here from the picture some of these components of cannabis. These are the terpenes, these are the aromatic components. It's what you smell of the cannabis is mainly terpenes, because cannabinoids actually do not have a smell. But is this also true with CBD? Well, actually it is. A study done this time on mice shows us 2 very interesting points. One point is the so-called bell-shaped dose response, and this is typical for single molecules like only CBD or only THC. We can see here from the graphs that if we have a lower amount or a greater amount of CBD, it doesn't have an effect. Only a specific amount has this effect. Whereas if we compare it to extracts, so whole plant extract of CBD, we can see that if the amount increases, actually the effects also increase. So we can say that CBD-rich extracts are more potent and efficacious than CBD by itself. This study was done on mice. If you look at a study done on people, and this was a meta-analysis, so it was an analysis of different studies regarding treatment-resistant epilepsy, mainly in children, but also in adults, where they compared CBD-rich extracts with CBD only. And again, we can see that a higher number of patients actually reported improvements when using CBD extracts compared to only CBD. Another interesting fact was the dosage, the dose used. The dose was 4 times lower with cannabis extracts compared to only CBD. So we can say actually that CBD extracts were 4 times more potent than pure CBD. And also because the doses were lower, the adverse events were also lesser compared to CBD users. Now here is a very nice overview of all the different pharmacological effects of CBD, different studies, and we can see the effects, anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and so on, in correlation to different diseases, such as Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, multiple sclerosis, epilepsy, Huntington's disease, hypoxia, ischemic injury. This is when organs like the heart or the brain do not get enough blood and oxygen, pain, anxiety, depression, also cancer, nausea, inflammatory disease, rheumatoid arthritis, inflammatory bowel disease, cardiovascular diseases, and even diabetic complications. So we can see quite a wide variety of different potential treatments for these kinds of diseases with CBD preparations. But the interesting thing is, what are people who are using CBD actually using CBD for? And we can see here an online survey. It was actually a study published last year where they asked over 2,400 people, CBD users, what they use CBD for. We can see that mainly this was done in the United States, mainly from the United States, the states where cannabis is legal, and it was used mainly for medical conditions, specific medical conditions, but also for general well-being and general health. So what were these symptoms and diseases that they used for? We can see that number one is chronic pain. Then we have arthritis, joint pain, anxiety, depression, insomnia and other sleep disorders, migraines and other types of headaches, PTSD, nausea, and so on. This is a typical result of surveys where we see not only for CBD products but also for cannabis products that a lot of people are having very good results and using cannabinoids for treating their chronic pain. Chronic pain is usually number one and number two in these types of surveys. So it does have an effect, and people are actually using and having good results. Now, when asked if CBD products by themselves treated the condition very well by itself or moderately well by itself, again, we can see a very similar picture. Chronic pain, arthritis, joint pain, anxiety, insomnia, depression, PTSD, and so on, all these indications, all these symptoms and diseases were treated very well only with CBD products. And a lot of people, a lot of patients are actually substituting CBD for conventional prescription drugs. And how were they using CBD? They were using it in various methods. We can see sublingually, taking drops under the tongue, vaping it, capsules and pills, liquids, smoking, edibles, all kinds of methods. But as with all online surveys, they have their limitations, and we have to be careful when analyzing the results. And one of these limitations is when we look at the most common adverse effects or side effects reported by some of these users. We can see that these side effects, dry mouth, euphoria, hunger, red eyes, sleepiness and grogginess, these are not typical CBD side effects, but typical THC side effects. So we can assume that people who reported these adverse events were actually using products that had some quantity of THC present. Before I go on to talk about CBD side effects, let's talk about CBD safety. How safe is actually CBD? Well, tests have shown that it's very well tolerated and safe in humans in high doses, and even when taken chronically, so when taken over a long period of time. Now, we do see some studies, in vitro and vivo studies, where it shows its effects and potential interactions. As I mentioned before, it has many molecular targets in our body, and some of them are enzymes. These enzymes metabolize also other drugs. So CBD can inhibit these enzymes and at higher concentrations, and it can have effects on other drugs. So this is something to take into account. Also, we need more studies to determine its effects on other systems, like on hormones, and of course, studies with greater number of participants over a longer period of time, so we can really get some data on how CBD is when used chronically, when used over a longer period of time with a lot of people, to see really the results of these effects. But talking about side effects, CBD usually does not have any side effects. Most users will not feel anything with CBD unless they have a specific condition. Now, in studies where CBD was used pure, only CBD, there were usually more side effects than studies, as I mentioned before, when CBD was in the form of an extract. But at high doses, and we are talking about 60 milligrams per day and up to 1,000 milligrams or even 2,000 milligrams per day, some people are using CBD, especially children, for autism and epilepsy. They show that there are some side effects, and in less than 10% of the patients, so a small quantity of patients actually has these side effects, which are drowsiness, indigestion, fatigue, and decreased appetite. These are the typical side effects of CBD. But all of these side effects were actually taken care of or reduced totally when the doses were lowered. So it was about the dose, and it's always important to know that dosing is extremely important in all cannabinoid products, especially if used therapeutically. So what is the future of CBD? Well, we're seeing a large amount of products consumer products being made with CBD, from chewing gum to sweets to chocolate to honey to different types of drinks, coffee, and so on. It's being put practically everywhere. But CBD is not the only cannabinoid. There are other cannabinoids which have great potential in therapeutic utility, such as CBG, cannabigerol, which is another interesting cannabinoid. It's non-intoxicating. It has similar effects as CBD does. It's analgesic, anti-cancer effects, anxiolytic effects, as well as antidepressant and antibiotic effects. And we are seeing slowly some products being sold in the European Union, such as CBG drops. And this is one of the things, again, that we have to take in account. CBG can work very well by itself, but it works better with other cannabinoids and in full plant extract. And we are seeing this synergy or enhancement of effect when we take CBD and CBG together, let's say in a 1-to-1 ratio, and it potentiates the effects of CBD in its analgesic or even anxiolytic, anti-anxiety effects. So which means that you can take less of a product to have the same effects. Now, of course, the problem with other cannabinoids is that CBD and THC are the prevalent cannabinoids found in cannabis plants. And we don't have plants yet producing higher amounts of other cannabinoids, which are also very interesting, such as THCV and CBDA and so on. So we absolutely need more data. We need more clinical trials, and I don't know how much you can see from this picture, but these are the current clinical trials being done with CBD. And we can see that most of them are done for different types of epilepsy, treatment-resistant epilepsy, but we do see other trials for schizophrenia and for pain, and also for autism spectrum disorder. But if we look at what trials are going to be done, for what trials they're recruiting actually patients, we can see that there's a wider variety of indications, from anxiety to bipolar disease, to also, of course, different types of epilepsy, PTSD, Parkinson's disease, chronic pain, as well as schizophrenia. We can see here, again, schizophrenia, glioblastoma, a certain type of brain cancer, ASD, autism spectrum disorder, and so on. So in the future, we will have a lot more of data. These are trials done on humans. These are clinical trials, and we will see a lot more of these effects of CBD on a wider population of patients in different types of medical conditions. Now, we also always have to listen to patients. Patient feedback is absolutely essential because people who are using, the patients who are already using CBD and having good results, they can teach us a lot. And we can see again here from this graph that a lot of these patients are actually using CBD for anxiety, for autism, chronic pain, insomnia, seizure disorders, and obsessive compulsive disorders, as well as many other different indications. And this patient feedback is absolutely crucial also for making new clinical trials with different diseases. Now, one of the things that's absolutely crucial for patients and for consumers is the testing and the quality assurance of CBD products. Not only testing for things that shouldn't be present in the products, such as toxins, such as other chemicals, heavy metals, and pesticides, insecticides, and so on, but also the actual content of cannabinoids that is in, let's say, oils and other cannabinoid products. Now, this was a study published actually last year where they analyzed 14 different CBD oils, CBD drops, sold in the European Union. And what they found out was that only 1/3 of them actually had the levels of CBD in the product that were indicated on the label, which means that 2/3 of them had inaccurate levels of cannabinoids, of CBD in this sense, in the product and were different from what was written on the label. And as I said, dosing is absolutely important and crucial in many indications, and if you do not know what's inside your product, you cannot dose accurately. And also talking about synergy with other molecules such as terpenes, they also found out that in all of the 14 samples, only one sample had a higher amount of terpenes. Most of them had 0 to non-terpenes, so there is little to none synergy. And this is mainly to how these products are produced and, of course, how THC is taken out of these products, along, of course, with other components that are crucial in cannabinoid products. Now, of course, the laws and regulations are the ones that determine what products we will see and are available in each specific country, and despite WHO very positive recommendations for CBD, finding that it has potential therapeutic use, finding that also it has no public health risks and no abuse potential, despite all these positive facts, we are seeing now that the European Commission ruled for CBD as a novelty food, meaning that it's in a way prohibiting the use of CBD in any kinds of foods. Now, we will see how different European countries will implement this ruling by the EC, but again, I ask myself, why are they doing this? Why are they trying to prohibit CBD from being received, taken, and eaten, let's say, by people? What is the reason? And I cannot find a normal reason. In my opinion, it shouldn't be illegal. It sounds a little bit like the prohibition of cannabis, which started in 1936. And why are they having so much against this natural product that has not harmed anybody in thousands of years of use? Thank you very much for your attention. I think we do have some time for questions. There. Hello, can you give the mic to the person there? Thank you.
Regarding the product which was good in the content of terpenes,
yeah.
Do you know which brand or what?
Yes, I do, but I won't tell you.
Okay.
It's a Dutch producer.
It's a Dutch producer?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.